So I'm going to start giving you just a quick introduction over the basis of semiotics, and to tell you that much of the research presented here has to do with this research program. It's called Studies on Intermediality and Intercultural Mediation. The research program studies empathy and interpersonal abilities and also intercultural abilities in multimodal communication. There are different communication levels. The physical level of communication that may take place at the biological level, but also using technological means. The linguistic categorical level is made up of signs, and signs are mediators between the speaking subjects and the surrounding objects. We also have an interpretative level where all these categories are taking place. Meaning is determined by sense perception, the conscious level, and we have also the metacognitive level, which is the consciousness of being aware of something, so it's self-consciousness. How does cognition happen? The first thing is we get sensory stimuli, and this is selected by means, first of all, of attention. So first of all is we need to be attentive to what's happening, and then automatically we evaluate that information in consciousness in what is called working memory. Okay? Then when that information is evaluated, we can transfer it to long-term memory and through learning. Okay? And also this process configures levels of action. The senses provide information about the environment. Then we have attention, where the senses are also alert to the presence of others. And so we will focus later on face recognition, eye contact, and intersubjectivity, which is what the talk is going to be about. The senses provide also information about internal states. In Peirce's interpretation, we have a triangular relationship. He defines sign as anything which is determined by something else, which he calls object, and determines an effect upon a person, which effect I call its interpreted. They can be arbitrary symbols, alphabets, okay, or they can be motivated by real relations. So icons can be images, metaphors, diagrams, and indexes, which are metonymic. They point to cause-effect relations. Some technologies use a particular type of sign. Comics are coming very much into the picture, and graphic novels. Why? Because the digital format has made things a lot cheaper. We have a lot of images, icons in terms of semiotics, because they are easier to decode. In reading, you have to generate the mental image, the gestalt, which is called, from an abstract medium, which are words. Just to show you quickly what we mean by intersubjectivity in graphic novels, this is a paper that I wrote about this comic. It's called The Spiral Cage by Al Davison, and what I argue in that paper that I wrote is how he tries to engage the reader into feeling what he feels. For instance, here, notice that we read not horizontally, but we read vertically. To show the effort of climbing up, we read this way. Okay? And then again, this way. Another aspect important to show empathy, to make the reader feel what he's feeling, is visual contact.
Hello everybody, I'm going to talk about two comics. There's two comics. I'm going to focus first one, Mother Come Home by Paul Horstmeyer, and the second one is a Spanish author. His name is Miguel Gallardo, and is Maria y Yo. Mother Come Home is about a father and his son that they loses the mother of the child, and how he faced this casualty, this huge problem. The first thing that I want to focus on is in the color of of the comic. Everything is in brown and dark green, and it's yellow but dark. The narrator is the child, and he used this mask to face this problem, the loss of the mother. So when he put this mask, he's the protector of the memory of the mother and the life of the father. So the mask is a symbol of that, how he tries to protect his life, and how was his life, and what is going to happen then. Other important things in this comic are gazes. When the father addressed to the boy, it's like he addressed to you. And when the child addressed to the father, it's addressed to you. So you feel like you are the father and you are the child. All the things that you can feel as a reader is this sadness, this loss, this tragedy. So I think the author achieved his aim. Maria y yo. It's about his relation with her child, Maria. The child is autist, and it's a different perspective. The comic is all white, red. There's a lot of happiness in this comic. He used these colors, everything is white, but he doesn't use vignettes. There's a lot of text that show you how he works with his child, his life, how his child feels and acts. And another important thing in this comic is that it's very simple, with a lot of movement. In the faces, it's totally different ways to approach the problems. And I think in comics you can find a lot of these examples.
Well, I'm going to talk about Franny and Sui, which are two short stories written by G.D. Salinger. So these are very interesting stories to analyze now, because they are full of description of gestures. John Updike has said that Salinger was a uniquely relevant artist because of his intense attention to gesture and intonation, for he seeks the words for things transmuted into human subjectivity. Okay, I want to tell you that action takes place in different rooms. Well, they move from a train station to a diner in Franny, and then in Sui they are in a bathroom, then they go to the living room, then they go to the parents' bedroom, to their brother's bedroom. The actors are as if they were in a theater, in closed spaces, which represents their isolation from the rest of the world, but it helps the reader to focus more on their problems. These quotes that I have got here are about the eyes and about the description of how they look into each other's eyes during the dialogues, trying to figure out what the other is thinking. So, for example, this is in Sui. Sui is talking to her mother, to his mother, and he doesn't actually see her face at this moment. So that's why Salinger says, at that instant, had Sui seen her face, and particularly her eyes, he must have had a strong impulse, passing or not, to recall, to reconstruct, or to reinflect the greater part of his share of the conversation that had passed between them, to temper it, to soften it. This is another quote from Franny, who is looking at Lane, who's her boyfriend, and she knew from Lane's expression that she had asked the wrong question. What was worse? She suddenly didn't want the olive at all and wondered why she had even asked for it. Salinger has a very strong sense of humor, because here the character Franny is very confused, and she's having a breakdown. So she really doesn't know what to say, and she knows that her boyfriend is very annoyed at her because of what she's saying. Basically, Franny and Sui are of a family which is called the Glass family, and they are very intelligent. They are almost geniuses because their older brothers, Buddy and Seymour, have educated them. They have taught them a lot of things about philosophy and religion since they were very young, and they consider themselves as freaks, and everybody sees them as different. So that's why Franny has got a problem, because her boyfriend doesn't understand her and she doesn't really like him. So she will go back home and Sui will try to help her out of this breakdown, and they will talk about it. This is during a conversation which she has with Sui in the bathroom. So it was a very touch-and-go business in 1955 to get a wholly plausible reading from Mrs. Glass's face, and especially from her enormous blue eyes, where once a few years earlier her eyes alone could break the news, either to people or to Batman, that two of her sons were dead, where once Bessie Glass's eyes alone could report this fact, with an eloquence and a seeming passion for detail that neither her husband nor any of her adult surviving children could bear to look at, let alone take in. Now, in 1955, she was apt to use the same eyes to talk about very normal things. Her eyes could talk, in a way, about sadness, but it is difficult to know what they express when they talk about ordinary things. Yeah, so for example, one of the symbols is the color blue, because not only Bessie's eyes are blue, but also Franny and Sui's eyes are blue, and those are not the only things which are blue. There's a blue pencil, a blue marble, Franny's blanket is blue, the letter to Lane is typed on blue notepaper. This is related to what describes this family, that it is something special.
With comics, it's a little bit different because you have images, static images, so there is no movement. If you look, I'm gonna advertise my own work, but if you look at these panels or any comic panels, you will see static images. There is no movement. That you must create your story, okay, yourself. So where do you create the stories? Scott McCloud, the theoretician of comics, says it's right here in between the panels. So in the closure, this is where the reader creates movement. And this is quite logically or psychologically, if you want, because Gestalt theory says that your mind creates continuity. So this is one of the rules of Gestalt theory that also is applied in comics. So another rule applies to cinema, because when you have a lot of images that move very fast in front of your eyes, you will perceive them as continuous. And it's very important for me, this difference between media, because I think to create art horror is different with each medium. So from my own perspective, the hardest way to create art horror emotion is by using comics. So in literature we have text, and we have to use our own imagination, and we must be horrified, or we must feel tension and suspense and so on. This is Gothic literature. They use ghosts and they create an environment that is morally or psychologically or physically destroyed by some kind of being which must be fantastic and must use the whole power and its violence to destroy these worlds. In comics, you all have the full control of reading. So you may hear of or read about a monster, but you are distant, you are protected. You decide when the time flow will happen or not. Because in comics, time and space are similar. Everything is time. It's a moment, another moment, so on. But it's juxtaposed in the same page, which happens only with comics. In movies, you have moments after moments. It's a time flow you cannot control. It's the image of movies. It's a full authority. In comics, you have the freedom, and these monsters takes your freedom away
Now I'm going to talk about popular music and the case of Bob Dylan. Popular songs are only occasionally performed in front of the audience. So on the contrary, these are most commonly listened repetitively over again, the same recorded version. Another possibility may be that listeners get further information by other means, by other media. So that we have visual media, audiovisual. As you know, the record industry has spread the concept of video clips. And now, instead of digital, it is still very, very hard, and it's a very artistic resource, okay? Okay, so much of the indeterminate nature of this metaphysical rarefaction atmosphere can be understood with the term that Roland Barthes uses, the term that also Asun was explaining, gesture. He says that the gesture is the indeterminate and inexhaustible total of reasons, pulsions, indulgences, which surround the action with an atmosphere. Popular music and the popular song structure frame the message that is voiced by its author, Bob Dylan. Music completes and determines the atmosphere around the words of this author. The objective of this brief analysis here is to describe the sort of singing that helps Dylan and us, listeners, reflect upon our common backgrounds and societies. So that in the messages of songs like Blowing in the Wind, A Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall, and Masters of War, for example, it can be perceived the anguish and contest of the American, but also Western world societies too. And they are enhanced by their need of communication, okay, these songs. So the musical accompaniment of a song tries to capture and reinforce every listener's degree of attention. With what? With rhythm, with harmony, but also it creates a distance. So now any song today would have to find three evident enemies, I found. One, the functioning of the industry. Two, the willingness of the listener. And third, the automation, okay, of excessive tonal melodies, okay? They have become automatized, okay? It could be confirmed that one of the roles of the harmonica, okay, is precisely to create atonality. It confirms the reflective mood and the synchronicity of the song by alternating the melodic structure of the song with this chaos, this perfect chaos, okay? At this precise moment of the US history, when Bob Dylan started to write his own songs, this folkloric genre was subverted for declamatory and political purposes by an alternative fraction in the artistic scene that you all well know. Bob Dylan songs rapidly transcended those dogmas of the group, looking for more intersubjective and aesthetic strategies that reveal the universality of his message. Okay, we're going to listen to The Times They Are A-Changin' from the album with the same title, 1964. I picked this song because there can be observed many indexes, many deictic elements, many that as such serve discursive aims that we're talking about. These resources appeal directly for attention on the listeners and assert the urgency and the importance of things that are being described.
And admit that the waters around you have grown, and accepted that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing.
So thank you so much for coming here today. All the faces, some of the faces that I know for years and years, and some new faces. Thank you very much for being with us.